So I just wanted to catch up with you on the latest developments regarding Married at First Sight. The show has ended, they wrapped up season 12, and now the drama has transferred over to social media where Chris is letting loose on the cast members. So there's drama going on Instagram. We have MAFS drama on Instagram. Apparently, Chris has come out against Virginia and Eric now that it is known and has been verified that both Virginia and Eric have agreed to get a divorce. You know, Chris was very upset with them because he felt that they both disrespected him during the show about him getting his ex-fiancée pregnant. And there was a situation where Virginia and Clara approached him when they were doing the ATV scene, and Chris just felt disrespected overall. And then, of course, Eric had to step in as Virginia's husband to defend her honor and just let Chris know that, hey, look, if there are any problems going forward, you need to address me and not my wife. I don't want you two going at each other anymore. So Chris felt disrespected overall by Virginia and then Eric. So he's been really attacking Eric quite harshly, accusing Eric of getting a DUI in America that is driving under the influence. Chris said that Eric was trying to keep up with Virginia as far as all of the drinking, like we saw him try to do on the honeymoon where Eric was drunk. He said that Eric, after the show, Eric got a DUI. Eric had to do 45 days rehab, and while Eric was doing his 45-day rehab, Virginia had gone to Mexico, and she tried to have a threesome allegedly with Haley's brother and Haley's brother's wife.
Really?
This is what Chris is saying. And Chris is asking us.
Haley's brother and Haley's brother's wife.
Yes. That Virginia tried to have a threesome with Haley's brother and Haley's brother's wife in Mexico while Eric is doing his 45-day rehab, is what Chris said. And Chris claims that he's been getting all this information from people who know these people. So he challenged us, people who are viewing his social media platform, and he asked us, who do we think told him about Virginia and Haley's brother and Haley's brother's wife? Well, we don't know, but Haley came up because someone asked him, Chris, if he had any dirt on Haley, because Chris had been unloading on Virginia and Eric, and he said he has some dirt on Haley, but he wasn't going to reveal it because on the show, Haley did not disrespect him directly, but he did later find out during the reunion that Haley said some things he didn't like. But he said because that happened after the fact and Haley didn't do anything to him directly, he was going to let Haley slide for now. But he did definitely implicate Haley's brother and Haley's brother's wife. So that didn't look very good, in terms of leaving Haley out of the fray. But Chris says he's got all this dirt on all the cast members. He even went after Jamie from season 1, Jamie Otis, who's the host of Unfiltered. He went after her and her husband, Doug. He said that Jamie and Doug got a loan under fraudulent pretenses, or they got a loan ahead of other people who would have been more eligible, who would need the loan more so than Jamie and Doug. And he also said that Doug quit his job, that Doug doesn't work. And Chris said he gets all this information from the enemies of the cast members. So there are people out there who don't like the people on the show. And because they know Chris has an axe to grind, they DM Chris all this information. So Chris says he's also got dirt on my Jacob. He says that my Jacob's exes have contacted him.
I saw that post. Yeah. I mean, and I agree with you. There would be people out there who are who have an axe to grind, who have had a personal disagreement, or aren't really friends, but are more people who know these cast members from the real world. And it's a bit unfair. They're sending in information to Chris, and he's believing it and then spreading it out. I mean, lots of people have run-ins in their personal lives or their over years. You know, if you went back 5 years in your life, there's going to be some people that don't like you, or some people that could say something about you. It's but now Chris is amplifying it and spreading it out to the world. Yeah.
And that is why you earlier in a previous conversation brought up a good point that, you know, everything he says should definitely be taken with at least a grain of salt, because, you know, Chris has his own character issues that we can look at. So, you know, I believe some of what Chris says because it makes sense, but I don't know that what he's saying is the whole truth. And like you said, he's getting information, according to him, from these inside sources, but these inside sources they seem to all have an axe to grind. So they're not coming forward with good motives. They don't have pure intentions. So, you know, it is all alleged, supposed, reportedly. So, you know, we're just taking what he says, but we're looking at it, you know, with some doubt and reasonable suspicion. But he said that my Jacob's ex-girlfriends have contacted him. So, you know, he says he's got some dirt on Jacob, but he hasn't chosen to spill it just yet. Now, my Jacob has been very vocal for a while now. He has been challenging Chris to do a celebrity style boxing match. My Jacob wants to get Chris in the ring, and
because Jacob's a lot taller.
No, actually, Jacob is 6 feet tall, and Chris says he's 6 feet tall.
Oh, really?
They both claim to be 6 feet tall.
Oh, right. Jacob seemed just a lot taller. He seemed maybe like 6'1" or 2.
I couldn't tell how tall anybody was, really, because, you know, they all kind of look tall, but then sometimes they look kind of short. It depends on the camera angle, you know. But yes, my Jacob says he's 6 feet tall, and then Chris came on Instagram and said he was 6 feet tall. So they both stand at the same height, but they're both shaped very, very differently. You know, my Jacob is very muscular, is defined. And Chris claimed he had a big chest, you know, when he was on his honeymoon with Paige and he took off his shirt. He said he had a big chest. Well, you know, when your stomach is as big as your chest or bigger, that chest doesn't stand out. You know, it's the stomach that does it, because, you know, Chris did not have a flat stomach, and he certainly didn't have a muscular, you know, stomach where he had the abs, the cut up abs.
I don't remember that scene, but I remember him wearing a T-shirt, because a lot of the times he would wear jackets, you know. But when he wore a T-shirt on one occasion, he didn't really seem developed. He more just seemed like a normal guy, but he didn't seem muscly or developed.
No, Chris is not developed. As a matter of fact, Chris's biggest part of his body seemed to be his hips. You know, with those tight pants, you know, those stretchy jeans, you know, with the rips and the tears, and he wasn't muscular at all. But my Jacob does want to get Chris in the ring. My Jacob knows some company, I guess it's a promotional company called Rowdy and Rough, or Rough and Rowdy, something like that. It's on my Jacob's Instagram, but apparently Jacob knows of a company that can, you know, set up the boxing match and promote it and all that kind of stuff. So Jacob wants to do it where they can get paid, where they can fight each other but they can both get paid. That's why Jacob wants to do it through this company. And I heard this months ago. I heard about this months ago that my Jacob wasn't willing to go back and forth with Chris on social media because, my Jacob had done several episodes of Unfiltered during the season, as the participants are supposed to do. And on a few of those episodes, my Jacob weighed in on Chris's treatment of Paige. And of course, my Jacob, raked him over the coals and said very unflattering things about Chris. And Chris did not like that. And of course, Chris took to social media to respond. And my Jacob said, I heard months ago, that he didn't want to go back and forth with Chris. He just wanted to get in the boxing ring with Chris. So my Jacob is saying it now.
That's a good approach by Jacob, because it'll almost, you've heard the expression like put up or shut up. It's almost telling Chris to, if you want to have a big mouth and come at me online, why don't we get in the ring? And Jacob's confident he'll win in the ring, and that could put an end to whether Chris agrees to fight or not. If he doesn't, it'll look like he's chickened out, and if he does and he loses, Jacob's won then as well. So yeah, it's a good move by Jacob.
Well, Jacob keeps issuing this challenge, and Chris hasn't taken him up on it yet. So it is on tape, okay? Because Jacob did reissue the challenge. So you can go on Jacob's Instagram and you can see where Jacob did a little brief video telling Chris, let's get in the boxing ring, and Chris, my Jacob even said for the first round, to make Chris feel more comfortable, my Jacob said he would not hit Chris in the face. He would only do body shots in the first round so as not to mess up Chris's face too bad. Now, I'm thinking Chris might not want to take my Jacob up on the body shots thing, because as far as most of us are concerned, we wouldn't know the difference if Chris was concussed or not, because we already think Chris is crazy as all get out. So we wouldn't know anything about that. But if Jacob gets to that body, rearranging those internal organs and things, Chris might be all the worse for wear. So I don't know if Chris has a safe place to go with the, face versus body offering. But, Chris hasn't taken him up on it.
Yeah, it is a thing that they sometimes do, these sort of celebrity or sort of medium celebrity challenges to a sort of amateur exhibition boxing match. I know in Australia there's been a few people who have been on TV or have some sort of medium level celebrity, and they've challenged sometimes another person in public. Sometimes they've gone through with it, sometimes they haven't, but they could, like the promoter could organise an event where there's a couple of real fights, like proper fights, and then as an exhibition they have these extra ones like Jacob versus Chris, because it's good for the audiences. You would get a lot of non-traditional boxing people come along, like reality TV fans who live in Atlanta would maybe go and watch this boxing match, so it's a sort of win-win for everyone. Yeah,
you have a built-in audience. You definitely have a built, because a lot of people would tune in and turn up to see Christopher box anybody, because people do want to see him get hit. People feel like he deserves a beating, so for the way he treated Paige. So definitely there's an audience for that type of thing. And my Jacob has issued the challenge, and this is not the first time the challenge has been issued, and Chris has yet to take him up on it. Now, Chris, as you saw, has a lot to say on his Instagram, but he never addressed boxing Jacob. He never addressed that. He's talked a lot of things about a lot of people on the show, and he's even pulled out the race cards. He definitely said that there's a double standard as far as race is concerned, as far as how blacks are treated versus how whites are treated. And he also talked about the sexism, how women are treated versus how men are treated. So Chris is pulling out all the stops.
On the racing, I saw that where he said, the race people treated differently. But his behaviour was worse than he was comparing it to Haley, wasn't he? He was saying how Haley did things and he got treated worse than Haley by the viewers. But what Haley's accused to have been doing, or what people think of Haley, most people don't think what she did was as bad as what Chris did. So it's a false comparison that Chris is trying to make, because he
It's a false comparison for Chris to compare himself to anyone. There's nobody Chris can compare himself to, because if you think about the most hated person to date on Married at First Sight, okay, from seasons 1 through 11, nobody stands out more than Chris does. So Chris has surpassed everyone. So there is nobody you can really compare him to. And there have been husbands on Married at First Sight who were accused of engaging in even physical abuse. But the thing about it was, but this was like after the show was taped, after the couple was married. You know, it wasn't during the show, it wasn't during the taping, it wasn't during the season. It was after the fact, and it was behind the scenes. You know, it wasn't on camera. See, the problem with Chris is his mistreatment of Paige was all captured on camera. We saw what happened. Chris didn't play nice and wait until after decision day, you know, wait until taping had concluded and then started treating Paige bad. He treated Paige badly from the honeymoon going forward, you know. So I understand where he might feel like I've noticed in certain cases where I've seen a black bride act out and people turned on her, where we saw white brides act the same and people were not as harsh. I've noticed that, and I've definitely noticed a double standard where men get treated more harshly than women in similar circumstances. I've noticed that too, but not in the case of Chris. He can't compare himself to anybody because he surpassed everyone when it came to being a villain. And he did mention Haley because he had sex with Paige to see if feelings would develop. Haley had sex with my Jacob to see if feelings would develop. And when Chris did it, he was accused of emotionally manipulating Paige. When Haley did it, she was given credit for trying. And that is a double standard. And that is not fair. But Chris did so many other bad things that's a weak point to stand on. And then he said Haley has become the unsung hero. Haley's nobody's hero, sung or unsung. I don't know why he made that part up, because Haley is just as much disliked now as she was back then. People who liked her then like her now. People who didn't like her then don't like her now. So I don't think people have changed how they feel about Haley. They feel the same way they've always felt about Haley, you know?
Exactly. And she was, and when he said unsung hero, no one was making her out to be a hero. Even people who support her were basically saying, look, she wasn't into him, so she wasn't attracted, don't blame her, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that's why she didn't reciprocate the affection or give hugs. You know, that was their sort of line of defence. But they were never saying she's a hero. I mean, it's totally over the top for Chris to frame it like that.
And it's over the top for him to try to compare himself to her at all. Because what he did surpassed what I've seen anybody do on any season of Married at First Sight ever. And that's why the ratings were so high. That's why people were so, enraged. And that's why the social media interaction went through the roof, because people felt very strongly about Chris. Emotions ran high with Chris, and that makes for good ratings. That really does. And that is why Chris was able to carry the show on his shoulders. Chris carried season 12. Season 12 is on the map as one of the highest rated Married at First Sight seasons because of Chris. It's because of him.
Denise, I haven't watched, as you know, the past episodes in the US except for this season. I've watched this season, sorry, but I haven't watched previous seasons. And in Australia, we've discussed it before that the Australian one is more sort of dramatic and confrontational, things like that. But now Chris was sort of bringing that confrontation in this season. But are you saying basically in previous seasons of the US Married at First Sight that there was less of that confrontation, less of that sort of drama? Was it more genuine people trying to get together and sort of have more humble relationships, or were there still fights and blow-ups and sort of confrontations between couples in other seasons?
There were fights, there were confrontations, there were blow-ups, but it was all within the context of people trying to make the marriage work. Or where people weren't trying to make the marriage work, they tried to practice avoidance. So you didn't have somebody like Chris who wasn't into the marriage, wasn't trying to work things out, who was being super, super combative and just walking out and abandoning the experiment. You know, most of the people realize, hey, look, you're in this thing for the duration. It is 8 weeks, and good or bad, you know, you got to go through it. You got to get through it. Chris created a third option. It wasn't a succeed or a fail. He created a third option to leave at will. That was the third option that he created for himself. I have not known anybody to just leave and I won't move in where I'm supposed to move in. I won't live with my spouse. You know, I'll come and go. I'll only show up for the reunion. I'll show up way late to meetings with the experts. You know, Chris stands alone with all of that. There have been problems and drama in the past seasons, but not of this magnitude.
Okay. And with regard to that, you mentioned how, or if people read the Instagram posts of Chris, he basically comes out and says Paige stayed when she didn't have to, and Paige, you can explain it. Could you basically his angle on Paige?
Yes, he said that Paige, he felt bad because he didn't feel a connection with Paige. He wasn't attracted to Paige. And he said that Paige wanted to continue with the experiment. She wanted to stay on the show. She said to him, according to Chris, allegedly, supposedly, reportedly, that she wanted to continue to do the show and get her paycheck. That's what Chris said. So Chris said that he agreed to continue a bit of a storyline with Paige where it looked like he was sort of trying to work things out with her a bit, which is why he would show up every now and again. But he said things were revealed to him along the way that he didn't like. Remember, he accused that Dwight guy of trying to hook Paige up with one of his friends.
I remember he had that falling out with Pastor Dwight at the reunion, didn't he? Because
he said that Dwight had no business reaching out to Paige. Remember, Dwight met with Paige at the coffee shop or whatever, and he told her, you know, that he felt bad about what happened and she deserved better. And Chris was on social media saying, well, you tried to hook her up with one of your friends, and I don't appreciate that. And you had no business meeting with her. You go through the husband. You don't go directly to the wife. And I'm thinking, Chris, are you insane? You abandoned your wife. So Dwight didn't have to go through anybody to get to Paige because Paige was by herself. She was alone. Her husband had abandoned her. An abandoned wife is directly accessible. You don't have to go through anybody to talk to an abandoned wife. She's by herself. So, you know, but it turns out Chris is saying now that the friend that Dwight tried to hook Paige up with is the Styles guy. the guy named Styles, who we saw her go on a date with on the Where Are They Now episode.
Okay, sure that.
Yeah, so things come full circle. See, this is what I'm saying. So I do believe some things Chris says, but it could be a lie still, but he just ties things together. So he accused Paige of going behind his back and doing things that made him look bad, which is ridiculous because, the way he treated Paige, she owes him nothing at all. But he accused Paige of wanting to create a fabricated storyline in order to stay on the show and collect the paycheck. He said that he was working with Paige and trying to go along with Paige, but then he found things out about Paige that he didn't like, such as the Dwight meeting, such as Dwight hooking her up with his buddy Styles, who we saw later Paige go on a date with. And he said, even the experts told Paige she didn't have to continue with the experiment. And Cal said that himself. Pastor Cal did say that the experts told Paige she didn't have to continue with the experiment. She could have left. That would have absolved her of any contractual obligations, financial, all of that. She would not have incurred any type of fine or whatever because she would have been allowed to leave. She was excused. She was given permission to leave, and Paige stayed. She didn't stay because Chris was with her, because he wasn't. Chris never moved in with her. They never lived together. So she could have left. And then Chris also accused Paige of lying about how much sex they had, because Paige was telling everybody that she and Chris were having sex throughout the entire honeymoon, and that they were having sex on and off again after the honeymoon. And Chris said that a lot of that was not true, that they did not have all the sex that she was describing. And she made him look like he was manipulating her and using her for sex. And he said that was not true. And he even said that when he told Paige that he wasn't attracted to her, he said that Paige told him, Chris, that she was not physically attracted to him, that she liked taller men than Chris. He said, that's when he said he was 6 feet tall. He said that Paige told him that she likes taller men and she likes her men muscular. And he is not muscular, as you pointed out. So we didn't know that Paige didn't find Chris attractive and that she wanted somebody with a different physique than what he's got. And he said that Paige did everything she could to make herself look like a victim when she didn't have to, which is where he mentioned that, she had the option to leave the show and she didn't, because she wanted to sit there and look like a victim and still collect a paycheck.
But if what Chris said was true, right, like say we took it as true, then remember when he found out about the point you raised just a moment ago about he got upset with Dwight for having met Paige. Now, if he had genuinely made an agreement with Paige that, look, you're not my type, and Paige, yeah, you're not as tall as I like, so we'll agree to keep the show because I want to do it, and Chris agreed to that, well, then why would he be sort of so offended or angry at Dwight for reaching out? Because if it was just an agreement and they were both having this sort of agreement for the show, then why would he be offended at Dwight? But he seemed genuinely annoyed at Dwight, and he was even going to end a friendship with Dwight. He said, I don't consider you my spiritual guidance, or don't try and give me guidance. And he didn't want to speak to him anymore. Remember, he said that at the reunion. So if he was genuinely coming from a place of, if what he's saying is now is genuine, then and it was just an arrangement with Paige after they realised they weren't compatible. And why did he get so upset and wanted to have him fight in the car park and things like that? It just it doesn't really fit. I find that Chris sort of talks a lot of BS, and so although what he said could be true in some situations, it's hard to filter it out from what's legit and what isn't, and he has a really vindictive nature where someone has done some minor thing to him or challenged him about something he considers it a major disrespect, and then he wants to either punish the person or call them out or spill dirt on the other person or cut the friendship off. He really takes it to the extreme, his response,
Well, Chris is delusional. He expects total loyalty, and this is what his problem was with Dwight. He said that Dwight was supposed to be his friend. He was supposed to be in his camp. He was, I think he was in his wedding, or he was supposed to be a groomsman or something like that. But he said that Dwight was his friend. And as his friend, Dwight had no business crossing over the bridge to reach out to Paige. If Dwight was supposed to reach out to anyone, it should have been to Chris, his buddy. So Chris felt crossed by Dwight because Dwight reached out to Paige without clearing it with Chris. Chris has delusions of grandeur. He's the king sitting on the throne, and every move has to be made with his prior expressed approval. So because Dwight made a move without that prior expressed approval from Chris feels like Dwight is disloyal and can't be trusted. So Chris has a reason to be upset with everybody except Chris.
And it was the same with when Virginia and Clara were trying to say, we don't like the way you're treating Paige, or and then he really got his back up, and he called one a drunkard, and the other one he said, stay out of my business. I forget how he insulted Clara, but he definitely wanted to call Virginia a drunk, and he doesn't like.
But we did see Virginia drink a lot, so
it was he had some merit in that way. But it's just the whole point that he also wanted to almost fight Eric at the dinner table. Remember in Vegas when they had?
Yes.
Yeah.
But that was because Eric didn't want to fight. Eric didn't want to fight because if you notice, Eric did not get up. Virginia was standing up. Eric didn't want to fight. Eric didn't get up, and that's why Chris was so crunk, and he wanted to fight. But you see, my Jacob has offered to fight more than once, and Chris has not made a single move or said a single word about fighting. So that was a bunch of posturing, hold me back against somebody who clearly doesn't want to fight, So Chris has delusions of grandeur, and he sees the fault and the wrong in everyone but himself. And I have to say, in all fairness, I did agree with Chris being upset with Virginia and Clara for approaching him because their concern, as they both said, was for Paige. So if Clara and Virginia were concerned about Paige, they should have gone and talked to Paige. They should have gone to encourage Paige and to console Paige and to be a support system for Paige. Approaching Chris was the wrong thing to do because the optics, the visuals of it look bad. It's like these two women are approaching him as if they are some authority figures, like Chris owes them some type of accounting. He owes them some explanation for his behavior. And it was completely out of place, especially when we heard Chris say to the group, please respect our privacy. And when someone says that, that is a polite way of saying, mind your business, stay out of this. And that is understood amongst adults. When someone says, please respect our privacy, that's a time where you do not approach, you do not ask questions. You don't do any of that. And Clara and Virginia did that on their own, and they were wrong. And I think Chris overreacted. I think Chris could have been very classy and very dignified, and he could have told them, by way of reminder, that he said, please respect our privacy. And that would have sufficed. But he didn't do that. He went off and he made things much worse. Now, Clara, to her credit, did shut up when she saw things going wrong. She did. But before she did that, she said to Chris, so what is your plan going forward to make things right with Paige? See, that wasn't her business. And that's why Ryan had to come back and tell Clara, you need to watch what you say out of your mouth. But Eric did the right thing. He stood up and, he diffused the situation as best he could under the circumstances. And then, at dinner, let Chris know that, there should be no more communication between Chris and Virginia. Don't talk to my wife anymore. Talk to me. We'll deal with it man to man.
Yeah. But the thing is, Chris should realise it's an experiment where there's only 5 couples. So it's not like these people are, even though he doesn't know them from before the show, when Clara and Virginia are in the same experiment, obviously they're going to interact and they're going to talk and they're going to give comments, oh, my relationship's going well, I'm having some troubles, how are you? And then when they find out something he did wrong, like either leaving or having the baby, on the way with his ex and stuff like that, then I think it's reasonable they bring it up. It's a different situation to just...
No, they're supposed to let their husbands do that. They're supposed to let their husbands do that. Let the men handle that, because if one of the women was having some type of problems and upheaval in her life and her relationship, you wouldn't see a husband going to her and questioning her about her treatment of her husband. That would be women's business. Let the wives go and question that wife about what she's doing. And the same goes for men. If you see a man doing something wrong, you send your man to go in and have that talk and fact-finding, mission and all of that. You don't, as a woman, approach a man, especially 2 women against 1 man, when you know Chris is as wrong as 2 left shoes on 2 right feet. You know he's wrong, and there's nothing he can say to make it right. So the only thing Chris can do is get very defensive. And he had already shown the whole group at the dinner before that he wasn't in control of his emotions, getting upset, running off, crying. Paige had to go run after him and make sure he was all right and console him and dry his tears. So when a man is showing you he has no emotional control, you don't need to approach him about anything, period, especially if it's not your business. So Virginia and Clara were wrong.
But in a way, often in society, women have more of an interest in relationships and discussion of relationships and...
nosy.
So
go ahead and say it. Women are nosy.
More interested, So because the dudes might be like, I don't want to talk about it, and then their mate doesn't want to bring it up because it might make them uncomfortable or whatever, so they just don't talk about it and they go watch the football or have some beers, instead. But with the women are more inclined to either talk about it at length to the other women, and then if they see the man there and they think he's the source of the problem, it's their natural tendency to go up and say, Chris, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why did you do that? And you need to do better by Paige. And it's sort of a natural thing. And I don't think they were thinking we're the boss and we're going to tell you what to do. They were more just being themselves and saying, this is what we think is wrong and you need to do better, Chris. But like you said, he didn't handle it well, and maybe they should have learned sooner, but yeah.
But that's what you do in polite society, where you actually have a good rapport with the person. See, in normal environments, that works. A group of friends can approach each other without regard for race or gender and all that sort of thing. You don't have to make those lines of demarcation. Where you have an established rapport, they didn't have an established rapport. And Chris had already shown he's emotionally out of control. So, I can't rely on Chris to use a sound mind. I had to look to Virginia and Clara to use a sound mind. And we know Virginia doesn't have a sound mind either. So Clara had to be the voice of reason. And she was a little tardy with it. She realized her misstep. She realized it, and she took the corrective action of quieting down and not speaking anymore, because she said, okay, no more of this. I'm done with this. But it was too late, because by that time, Chris had already gone off the rails. You cannot rely on him to do the right, reasonable thing, which is why, like I said, I believe some of the things he said in his Instagram, but, a lot of it, I'm sure, is hogwash, and it comes from an emotional place and a vengeful place. And Chris did, basically come out and say, you guys are my enemies and I don't care about any of you. And, you cross me up, I'm going to unload and release all of this negative information about you that people who know you have given to me in my DMs.
Yeah. Can I just read one of his posts here? It says, this is Chris, when I asked y'all to mind y'all business, y'all should have listened. You never want to be an enemy of mine. Now call my bluff so I can drop these recordings, please. So he's sort of threatening that he has recordings of some of the situations or discussions that will expose dirt on these other cast members, or like that situation you mentioned with Virginia in Mexico, and he's sort of claiming to have these receipts ready to release if people want to call him out or come back at him, you know?
Right, and that's a negative thing, because nothing good is going to come from any of it. And like I said, even where you and I may not agree, we all agree on the point and the fact that Chris is not a good guy in this, and he has not handled himself respectably and decently in this. So regardless of what, dirt Chris unleashes on somebody, regardless of how he tries to expose, any of the castmates, he's still the bad guy. And nothing is changing that. Nothing he does, nothing he says, nothing he reveals is going to change the fact that Chris is the bad guy. That's who he is. He earned that. And it sticks.
Yeah. But now he's almost looks like he's launching into a bit of a campaign. He's done a few radio interviews and things, but he says in one of his posts that he's turned down more interviews. He's even got some business. He's doing some entrepreneurial sort of talks, or like a motivational speaking sort of situation for prospective business people who want to be entrepreneurs. I don't know how successful he's going to be at this sort of stuff, because it's one thing to have a bit of an abrasive style, but still be a successful businessman or whatever, or a sportsman, and yet might be a bit abrasive off field, but you've got the success on the field. But for one, he whether he's successful in business or not, it's hard to tell. But going around and sort of trying to threaten all these other people who he's had dealings with, it shows that he's I don't know. I'm not sure that many people are going to be thinking, yeah, I want to learn business from you, Chris, because his whole approach to relationships, he burns bridges so easily, and you would think he would possibly do that in business as well. If a supplier didn't do what he wanted, he might say, okay, I'm never dealing with you again, or I'm not going to pay you, or who knows. But he just seems to really, like you said about his emotions not being in check, he's constantly sort of wanting to settle scores with people, and often in business or in life, I know you don't want to be walked over, but you do need to sort of accommodate some things on some occasions. If it's a business situation, maybe Subway did the wrong thing by him in his mind, but he knew he had obligations to pay, and from what I've read, it sounds like he didn't continue on because he didn't pay his monthly loan or installments back to the Subway owners. It just seems he'll rather keep his pride and stick to his guns and do what he thinks is right in terms of his pride, more than do what's sensible.
Well, yeah, and let's bring Chris's high business acumen and his stature as a businessman down here to planet Earth. Okay, let's just land here on planet Earth. Nobody's rich from owning one Subway sandwich shop. That's first off, okay? So maybe he was the youngest to own a Subway sub shop. Maybe he was the youngest Black person to own a Subway sub shop. But nobody is rich from owning one Subway sub shop. And from what I have read, he does not own that Subway sub shop anymore. So, I don't know what lectures he can give to entrepreneurs about business, because we're not clear on what Chris's business is. Because if Subway was his claim to fame, that situation no longer exists. It's not like he took the one Subway, made it so successful to whereas he opened up other Subway franchises. He had the one, and it didn't work out, so he no longer has the one. Now, like to your point, being an astute businessman, he should know the art of negotiation, the art of compromise, the art of win-win. I give something, you give something, we both benefit, we both win. Nobody comes out feeling like a loser or disenfranchised. As a businessman, he should know how to work with people much better than what he has shown on Married at First Sight. So I'm not sure how the whole lecturing circuit would go for him, because you need a track record, which he does not have apparently, that stands today, and you need the personality, which some people like the drama, some people like the negativity, but that's who would actually spend their time looking at him and following him, is people who are drawn to drama. And you cannot build a successful business unless it's reality TV based on drama. So, Chris should have had his focus in a completely different place, which would have guided and directed his behavior to be a totally different way. But the way he presented himself, the way he faced challenges, the way he dealt with stress, it was all very unfortunate, and it made Chris look like he was less than. He was less than composed. He was less than decent. He was less than honorable. He was less than reputable. He was less than credible. So, Chris really needs to refocus, and we're getting all of this negativity. You've mentioned a plethora of negative attributes. I've listed a plethora of negative attributes, and we're supposed to be talking about a guy who was raised and brought up in the church. So then you got that religious aspect of it too, where not only did he fail in the secular realm, but he failed in the religious realm too, because no man of God is expected to behave the way Chris has behaved. And he's still at it. And he claims that he's got a new woman, and he claims that he's in a good place and he's around people who support him. Yet he's on social media making all these threats and saying that he's going to make all these revelations and expose people to for the purpose of humiliating and denigrating them, because apparently he feels disrespected. But none of these people, I don't think, are focused so much on Chris to where he should feel like he's the focus of any of their attention. I've not seen Eric and Virginia focus any attention on Chris post show. I have not seen who else? Jamie Otis from season 1, hosted Unfiltered. I haven't seen her focus much attention on him post show. So, and Paige claims she moved on. So, and she had no choice though. And that's another thing. He called Paige out for claiming that she changed her phone number when he said he wasn't calling her anyway, and he's got records. He's got phone records. He said that Paige was calling him from her phone, and Paige was calling him from Virginia's phone. And those things can be easily verified. So, there's a whole mind, but we didn't need to know that. See, a dignified man, a man of standard, would have held all that in, and he would have moved on, because remember, he said he's got a new woman. He's happy where his life is now. So that should be his focus, not getting revenge on castmates of a show where he didn't fully participate in the experiment.
He's almost being like a Kanye. He's being like a sort of a junior Kanye. He's wanting to be in the press and say what he wants and sort of be known as this guy who'll take on people who come at him. But he doesn't have like the music career or a sports career behind him or currently. So if his business isn't as good as he claims, then I'm not sure it's going to be enough to sort of sustain him into a ongoing character, yeah.
Well, he said that he's got an offer to do a spinoff.
Yeah, I saw that.
From Married at First Sight.
Is there a history of past? I know you said Jamie Otis became the host of Unfiltered, so that was good. But are there many other people who have gone from Married at First Sight into other reality shows?
No, not that I can think of. And even Jamie had to stay married and stay connected to Married at First Sight, because she didn't go on to have a successful career outside of the show. And that was like the third show she had done as far as dating and romance on reality TV, because she had been on the Bachelor, and there was some other show she was on. So Jamie has had to stay married, because if she and Doug got divorced, that wouldn't be the success story that the show could hold up as, the flagship relationship of the show, the success story of the show. So she had to stay married, and they had to shove Unfiltered down our throats in order to even give her the job, because she wasn't she didn't have anything going that was very successful outside. She wrote a book, something about her. It was chronicling her experience of trying to be a wife and going on the show and getting married. It looked like a pamphlet to me, and that didn't lead anywhere. So she has to stay married to Married at First Sight, because she hasn't had any real success outside. Now, I do believe Chris when he says that he has been offered a show. I do believe that, because for reality TV, the more dysfunctional you are, the more antisocial you are, the higher the ratings go. That's just the unfortunate truth to reality TV. It's all about the drama. And Chris brings tons and tons of drama. So, some of this could be, a way for him to show whoever is interested in him that he can continue drama even when there shouldn't be any.
Yeah. Is there a chance he could be selected on one of those shows? I forget the one that's on Oprah's channel, which is about love, a sort of dating.
I don't think he would be good for any relationship stuff. I think it would have to be Chris-centric, because, any woman who would volunteer to go on TV to date him would be raked over the coals. You saw how Paige caught it, and people like her. People support Paige, and they still called her stupid and a doormat and a glutton for punishment. They called her all sorts, and they still supported her. They still liked Paige, but they didn't like her choice to continue to try to be with Chris. So but Chris he claims he has a girlfriend. He's got somebody. So,
Yeah. Do you think, because he's a young black man who's sort of got the success story, and he also amplifies it by saying he was homeless, sleeping in his car, and now he's getting like $250,000 in investment or something for a project or whatever as part of his sort of rags to riches story. Do you think maybe a show which just followed him around, sort of doing business deals and being Chris, would that get viewers, or would that be popular?
It would be popular if they followed Chris around while he does his business dealings, flipping out on people, telling people off, cursing people out, threatening to fight people. You'd have to have all of that, because Chris just being a businessman is not enough. So it would have to be all these things that he's got going on his Instagram. Oh, if you say something bad about me, I've got dirt on you and I'll pull it out. Walking around challenging people, just being antisocial. And then, you'd probably see another part of Chris where he's a good guy. He's trying to be a nice guy. He's trying to do the right thing and all that. Then people would get bored. People would get bored if they saw Chris going around doing well in business, contributing to charities, doing good in the community, being a family man, all of that stuff, because that's the type of stuff that doesn't sell on reality TV. It doesn't get the ratings. It's the drama. And unfortunately, too many Black people give into that negative drama. They play into it. They do all those things that are wrong and negative and bad and combative and aggressive. And then they turn around and accuse you of being racist if you say, well, they're aggressive, they're combative, they're hostile. But they show you all of these things and you see these things, but you can't say it. But you can watch it on TV every week.
So, Denise, do you think there's a chance all this sort of drama aspect that Chris brought to the table, do you think there's a chance that viewers who tune in for sort of wholesome couples marrying and hoping to find love and having that sort of more lifetime movie, love story reason for watching the show. Do you think the producers risk alienating some of those traditional or sort of more wholesome viewers by having all this sort of crisp drama in the show?
I think viewers who tune in to Married at First Sight to see these couples come together, being strangers and trusting the process and giving themselves over to being married and following the advice of the experts are looking to see people find love and build marriages and start families and have kids. That's what the people really tune in to see. That was the original purpose. That was the original intent. And there are people in the audience who are purists who want to see these relationships. They want to see the ebbs and flows of the relationships. They want to see these couples face the challenges, get through the rocky times, get to the good times, and build a life from there. So I think that if the producers got back to the original intent of Married at First Sight and they cut off some of this drama, I think they would still maintain the bulk of their audience, because most people do tune in to Married at First Sight to see people get married and stay married from being strangers at first sight. So I do think that there are purists who would stay with the show, and there are people who get turned off by all this drama. And people have expressed, viewers have expressed their disappointment in the experts for mismatching these couples, which has brought on all this drama. We get all this, confusion and combat and mishaps from people not being compatible. The expert's job is to pair people who are compatible, and they haven't been doing that, and the audience sees through it, and the audience feels like the producers are engaging in cheap tricks. So yes, and I thank you so much for talking with me about this Instagram drama from Married at First Sight. Just when we thought we were wrapping up season 12, it was over, it was done. We had the decision day, we had a 2-part reunion, we had a Where Are They Now episode, and there was another episode that I missed. There was a Look Back episode. So Married at First Sight has been dragging and extending season 12. Season 12 is a season that never ends. So just when we thought Married at First Sight had done their last and final show of season 12, here Chris comes on social media extending the show on Instagram. So the drama continues, but I thank you so much for discussing this with me. You brought out some great points, gave us some good things to consider, and it is what it is, and we'll keep up with it as it goes along.
Thank you, Denise. I've enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks a lot. I'll speak to you next time.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in as we discuss the most recent updates on Married at First Sight, Season 12. Thank you for listening, and please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for your time.